Well, the grain market had a few good days this week and one really bad one to end the week. All the I-state corn crops improved in the good to excellent category last week. 6 to 10 day weather forecast, hot and dry temperatures, virtually no rain in the western grain belt means what? We might see the market react as that heat persists here in the middle of pollination. You know, all these traders just sitting on their hands doing nothing, but kind of wondering if this heat might move them a little bit. Kohli and Cavanaugh got some thoughts on that coming up straight ahead. Guys are brought to you each week by the Allen County Farm Bureau. Of course, the Farm Bureau getting pretty excited about State Fair down in Indianapolis. And I'm getting, 2 or 3 emails a day about the cool stuff that's going to be going on. But they're also very busy on the counting level as well, putting everything together so that they can celebrate their contribution of food, fuel, and clothing to our state, the nation, as well as the world. Support your Farm Bureau with a membership. Simply go online to itpaystobeamember.org. Well, guys, that 6 to 10 day outlook for July 30th through August 3rd calls for above normal temperatures almost nationwide. I mean, 80 to 90 here around the Great Lakes, but 90 to 100 and even above in some of the western corn belts. 61% of the corn is silking. And that means that more than half the corn crop, I think pretty much across the board, the entire U.S. corn crop is in some stage of pollination, or already in some cases for those that planted early actually completed the pollination stage and entering the dough or the earfill stage. David, that means we're in the most critical time of the season for making this corn crop. What do you make of this weather and the potential damage to it with these 100-degree plus temperatures?
Yeah, it's just amazing to see all these cold weather patterns followed by hot weather patterns that keep sweeping across the U.S. We need to see the weather start to stabilize. We're not seeing that right now. If you saw the drought index on Thursday, the whole corn belt is now looking at not extreme wet in some areas, but not extremely dry in other areas. Plus also watching the southern oscillator down there, and it's starting to still change over to La Nina. That is going to have an effect turning it hotter. But the whole story right now is this constant cycle of cold temperatures followed by hotter temperatures.
Yeah, managed money is holding record short positions, John, in both corn and soybean. I think maybe banking on record crop yields, which I'm pretty sure, we're going to see in a lot of areas around the grain belt. But could this weather pattern, you think, be enough to finally get traders to get moving and get active?
Well, it should. You just said it all right there, Rob, that we have record large fund short positions of both corn and soybeans. Now, this past week, we got some of that corrected. We saw some good buying come in and spark the rallies. I mean, at one time, soybeans were up as much as 50 cents from its recent lows. However, there's more room to go on the upside with the concern over this hot weather, particularly in the western U.S. We're probably going to be in good shape here. But you have to anticipate, Rob, that if this happens, then you're going to see crop conditions start to deteriorate from some really high levels at the moment, some good levels. But as soon as those deteriorations comes in, that's going to spark short covering, and that should stimulate a further rally in the corn and the soybeans. The logic says that. Yes, we're expecting a big crop, but we don't know yet how big it is. We don't have any good estimates yet of meaningful estimates. By the way, our first estimate from the USDA on crop production comes out on August the 12th. It's just a short ways down the road. But yes, this should stimulate further short covering and further price rally.
Well, and to your point, we're about ready to get some surveys done and get some yield estimates to give us some kind of a sense about where we're at. StoneX is going to be doing that this next week. Apparently, they're going to be releasing their first crop survey yield estimate Thursday on August 1st. So give us a little bit better sense maybe of what's going on. We talk about weather, and David, the Black Sea region's causing a lot of concern. Apparently, they're looking at some losses, speaking about estimates, and like total production. Now, how much of that impacts their corn and how much of that is impacting their wheat production?
Yeah, we're hearing a lot more comments about the wheat situation in Russia. Now, the Russians are saying that as they're getting into harvest there, their crop is a little better than they expected on maturity and on yield. But the problem is their gluten numbers are way, way down because it's not going to meet their lowest that they can sell is the 12% gluten, and they don't have a lot of that. Ukraine, they're also looking at their corn crop very, very closely, and it's down, get a load of this, 23% from a year ago. And a lot of people are saying, you want the better quality, you got to come to the U.S. So you're going to be seeing a lot of buying to the U.S. on the export market in the future, I feel.
Yeah, David, a little further on on that is who's the third largest corn exporter in the world? It's Ukraine. And
Yes.
Their crop is being hurt by hot, dry weather, along with other problems, of course, in Ukraine. And I also saw a recent estimate where they expect their corn exports in the coming year, the coming crop year, to be down by 7 million tons. And where's that extra business going to come from? It's going to have to come from the United States. The business is going to come over here. You've got some analysts out there right now who are suggesting that we may see next year's U.S. corn exports set a new all-time record. So that's encouraging. I hope it happens.
Speaking of other markets and demand, obviously that's been one of the things that's been holding this market back has been a lack of the kind of demand that we have expected in years past. Argentina's corn harvest has made a lot of progress, nearly about what I'm hearing, 87% harvested versus 68% last year, so way ahead of schedule. But the Rosario Grain Exchange had said early on, they said, this leaf hopper damage. And David, thank you for bringing that to our attention this several months back when this whole thing started. Mm-hmm. It's one of the things that they said, we're really not going to know the extent of this damage until we get to the tail end of our harvesting, because we're going to harvest the good stuff first and the lousy fields are going to be harvested last. Well, here we are, 87% harvested. We're down to the last, 15%. Now, they dropped their production estimate by 1 million tons just this last week. You're hearing they expect to drop their production estimates further.
That's true. And the reason is not just the insect infestation, it's the weather has been so problematic for them. We talk about problematic weather here, especially with the derecho we saw not long ago. But Argentinians continue to see weather situations that in one part of the country is too wet, the other part's too dry. Same as in Brazil. Southern part of Brazil is too wet, believe it or not. And the rest of the country, the central part, is really pretty much on the drier side. So that weather is not only affecting us, it's affecting South America, it's affecting the Baltic states, it's affecting the Black Sea region, and China, too. They've had some weather problems, and so has India.
Yeah, so again, back to John's point, hopefully some of that demand comes right back here to our shores.
It pretty much has to. After all, even though our corn exports have declined as a percentage, it still leads the world. We're still the leading world exporter of corn. And we have, as David pointed out, we have really good quality corn. So it definitely should come back to us. And we're not seeing it really yet, but I think we will in the coming year. But David, back to Argentina, too. The Rosario Grains Exchange is expecting corn production at 46.5 million tons. USDA, though, is still at 52 million tons.
Yes.
Crazy.
Yes.
Can't figure that.
No. So who's right?
The optimisticness of the USDA has been seen for many, many years. John, we go back to the 70s, actually 60s. The USDA has always been very, very optimistic about these crops, not just ours, but the world crops right now. Imagine what they've been doing with the Brazilian crops, too. They've been talking way too much down there.
So let's talk export sales and see how we're doing here on the home front. U.S. corn pretty competitive at this time, as we mentioned. In terms of price, we're like the best in the world at the moment, as John has pointed out several times. Apparently, we got some sales this week, and they weren't necessarily huge. But, David, Japan, Mexico continue to be top buyers.
Yeah, definitely so. Wheat, 309. I'm not inspired by that number. Corn at 331. Oops, that's low. But look what we sold for new crop. That's right, they're wanting new crop corn, 745,000 metric tons. And on soybeans, only 88.7. But look at new crop. New crop soybeans, 82.9. And a lot of it going to unknown. Guess what? China's getting its name put unknown in so many ways, it's hard to realize it all.
Yeah. John, corn and soybean, we've talked about this before, but corn and soybean export inspections are really the important thing. You can make an export sale, but until it ships, that's the important part.
Exactly.
But my question to you was, we've only got 7 weeks left in the marketing year. Are we going to meet expectations?
Well, it looks like it, but that, again, that's a hard thing to pin down. You'd say, well, there's only 7 weeks left. We ought to be close to it. And you're right. But sometimes there are some last-minute changes that occur, especially coming from China, where they have stuff on the books and they defer to new crop or they cancel it.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, those sales are erased. But as you said, it's only the inspections that count, and we should have a pretty good handle on that. But what I'm hearing is at the moment, we are pretty much on course to meet the USDA projection for both corn and soybeans for this crop year. Now, we could get some surprises in the next several weeks. That's not unusual, but we're pretty much on schedule to meet those projections. We'll see. But one thing I'd like to point out is that soybeans this year, if it even meets projections, is going to be 14% below the previous year.
Wow, that's remarkable. David, one of the things that we don't really talk about as much, because there's always so much going on with the beef and the pork, but broilers and fryers, man, the market tone is pretty steady. And, you know, we had been talking about prices here a couple of weeks ago, and you said, well, hey, I still like chicken, and I'm with you. I do too. I found this kind of remarkable, or at least it made me think, you know, about the fact that even in the face of a lot of bird flu in the U.S., we've got adequate supplies to meet the demand that we've got out there.
We do, but not for egg-laying chickens. It's mainly the broilers that got away with it and fryers. It's the egg-laying chickens that we've lost so many to the bird flu. And if you look at the headlines, they said red meat and poultry stocks continue to tighten. That's the whole problem right now. Boxed beef is very, very strong right now. Pork's not as strong as boxed beef, but boy, people are wanting to eat beef as much as they can. I can't blame them. But we are seeing an increase in broiler eggs set. So we're going to be seeing more chicken from them, but not as much eggs as we saw in the past. So that's something to keep up. But look at this. We saw beef sold 13.4 million tons, but pork 30.2, and China was the fourth largest buyer of pork, 2.4 million metric tons. Not a bad number there, but the point is, our stocks here in our country of red meat and pork, to repeat, are lower than expected.
When I go to the grocery store, I'm finding that pork is really getting featured a lot at some extremely good prices.
Yeah, because October is National Pork Month, but what they're trying to do is focus as much on featuring pork to get people interested in it so they can keep buying it when we have more pork available in the fall. On beef, though, it's just the opposite of that. Beef stocks continue very, very tight and are expected to continue tight through the end of the year.
All right, it is time for the final word, and because I'm the guy that's got his fingers on the button, that means I can make the decision. So we've got the final word, but it's not Cavanaugh this week. John, sorry, I'm pulling the keys. We've got a guest this week.
What are you going to be, do you think, when you grow up?
A farmer.
Oh, have you ever lived on a farm?
Yeah.
How do you milk a cow? What's the first thing you need to milk a cow?
A cow.
I don't know, Cavanaugh. We might need to let you go. Kohli and Cavanaugh made possible each week by support from the Allen County Farm Bureau. And I know your local county farm bureaus are supporting Indiana agriculture every single day. And to keep up with that, Indiana Farm Bureau members can sign up for The Dispatch, the electronic newsletter that is sent out weekly during the legislative session and every other week the rest of the year. Topics covered in recent issues include the Farm Bill, the primaries, and updates from Farm Bureau task forces. To start getting the Dispatch, all you got to do is go online to infb.org. Just another one of the great benefits you get from your membership. Go online to itpaystobeamember.org.
Podcasts by Federated Media.